My family though? They were deeply rooted in tradition, clinging to the old ways with a vice-like grip. From the moment I could think for myself, I felt a growing rift, a disconnect between the free-spirited person I was becoming and the antiquated values they tried to impart. Eventually, that chasm became too vast to ignore. I had to break free. It wasn't easy turning my back on everything I'd ever known, the rural village, the conservative customs, the religion that permeated every aspect of life. But there was a whole world out there waiting for me, and I was determined to embrace it on my own terms. With little more than the clothes on my back, I made the heart-wrenching choice to leave it all behind and head for the capital. The first step on an uncertain path, but one that promised liberation. Those early days in the big city were brutal, the loneliness, the culture shock, the constant uphill battle just to get by. But I was stubborn and hungry for a taste of independence. I found work as a barista to pay the bills while putting myself through night classes, quietly defying the archaic notion that women belonged nowhere but the home. With each small victory, I felt layers of that oppressive past sloughing away. It was around that time that I met Julia, an eccentric artist with a free spirit that instantly resonated with my own. We became fast friends, sharing our dreams over coffee and conspiring on creative projects that pushed boundaries. When Julia needed help with an illustration gig, I eagerly agreed, partly for the paycheck, but mostly because it meant being part of something bigger than myself. For weeks, I toiled away, pouring every ounce of my newfound self into those illustrations. They were more than just drawings, they were a canvas where I could defiantly express the individuality that had been beaten down for so long. And when Julia unveiled my work to her client, I swelled with pride at having contributed something meaningful to the world. Or so I thought. Little did I know, Julia had passed off my illustrations as her own, taking all the credit and pocketing the full payment behind my back. I was devastated, not just by the blatant plagiarism, but by the gut punch of betrayal from someone I considered a true friend. It made me question everything I'd risked to build this new life of mine. For a while, the injustice ate away at me like acid. How could I move forward when the same old deception and disrespect kept rearing its ugly head? But in the end, I realized that dwelling on Julia's trashy ethics would only give her petty act more power than it deserved. My path was about rising above, not getting mired in the darkness I'd fought so hard to escape. So I pushed on, putting that episode behind me as I immersed myself in my studies and personal growth. Years ticked by, my independence solidified, and I even allowed myself to explore relationships, scandalous flings by my family's standards, but for me, a joyous rebirth into a life of my own making. That sense of rebirth came full circle when, purely by chance, I crossed paths with Julia yet again. She had interviewed for a job at the dynamic agency where I now worked as a senior creative director. The dredged-up memories of that plagiarism incident instantly stirred something protective within me. I couldn't let her bring that toxic energy into this environment I loved. When my concerns were raised, Julia's dismayed expression spoke volumes about how far I'd come from that naive young artist she once took advantage of. She tried to plead her case, but there was no bargaining to be had. I wouldn't allow her rancid ethics to infiltrate the space, just as I would never permit the poisonous ideology of my youth to retake root in the life I had remarkably built from scratch. In that moment, I experienced the ultimate catharsis and affirmation of how brutally I'd clawed my way to self-actualization. The old Ellie, the sheltered village girl destined for subservience, was officially dead and buried. I was a woman reborn, no longer shackled by oppression, deception, or anyone else's limitations. I didn't know what the future held, but I met it with a peace and certainty within myself that no one could ever take away. My life was finally, truly, my own.